The Enemy, Class 12, Chapter 4, Vistas CBSE English Core. This lesson is explained in English. The writer is Pearl S. Buck. This is part 2 of the explanation. It starts from page number 34. Link to the first video can be found in the description box. The Enemy highlights how a Japanese doctor saves the life of an American prisoner of war and rises above narrow national prejudices. He risks his honor, career, position, and life by sheltering a soldier of the enemy camp. The Hana sat close to the sleeping man. She felt sad and sympathetic towards him as she saw his thin face and twisted lips. She knew that he was suffering. She wondered whether the stories she had heard about the torture given to the prisoners of war were true. They were like rumors which spread when people told them to others. In newspapers, it was mentioned that the Japanese army was welcomed wherever it went, and people praised it. Hana recalled the story of an officer, General Takima, who was cruel to his wife and would beat her. No one talked about it anymore, as he had won the war in Manchuria. Manchuria is the homeland of the Manchu people. It is a part of the northeast China. To the Chinese, the region is simply known as the Northeast. Hana thought that if a man could be cruel towards his wife, then he could also be cruel to the prisoners in his captivity. Hana hoped that the man had not been tortured when she saw deep red-colored marks that were injury marks on his neck under the ear. Hana asked Sadao about the scars, but he did not answer. His instrument hit something hard. That was the bullet. It was very close to the kidney. He was not thinking of anything else, but was happy to have finally found the bullet. He moved his fingers inside the wound. Sadao was familiar with the tiniest part of the human body. Sadao had studied medicine in America. His professor of anatomy, which means the study of human body, had told them, that is the students, that if a surgeon did not have the knowledge of a particular part of the human body, it was like a very big sin. Because to operate upon a body without detailed knowledge of it, as much as the person who makes it has, would amount to committing murder of that body. Sadao's professor would often repeat these words in his class. Sadao said that the bullet had just missed his kidney. When Sadao would get engrossed in the operation, he would start talking to the patient. He addressed him as my friend. During the procedure, he forgot that this man was not a friend, but an enemy. Sadao was quick. He made a few surgical cuts on the body and removed the bullet. The man trembled in pain, but remained unconscious. He spoke a few words in English, which were an expression of the pain that he was experiencing. The man sank again into silence so profound that Sadao took up his wrist, hating the touch of it. Yes, there was still a pulse so faint, so feeble, but enough, if he wanted the man to live, to give hope. The injured man murmured in his unconscious state that he had been hit in his intestines. After that, he became so quiet that Sadao held his wrist to check his heartbeat to see if he was still alive. His pulse was very weak, but there was still hope that the man would survive. Sadao stopped Hana from administering anesthetic. He filled a syringe with the medicine and pushed the vaccine into the man's arm. He held the man's wrist. The pulse shivered and then improved. He said that the injured man would live. When he woke up, the man's blue colored eyes were full of fright as he realized where he was. Hannah felt sorry for him. She served him food as the servants refused to enter the room where he was kept. Hannah asked him not to be afraid. He was astonished that she could speak English. Hannah replied that she had lived in America for a long time. He wanted to speak further but was unable to do so. She fed him gently and said that he would soon become strong. She said that despite the fact that she disliked him. When Sadao visited the man on the third day after the operation, he was sitting, but his face was pale and weak. As Sadao inspected the wound, the man asked what would he do with him. Sadao said that he himself did not know that. He was supposed to hand him over to the police as he knew that he was a prisoner of war. Sadao asked him not to speak and not to tell his name also, unless he asked him to do so. He closed his eyes and turned his face towards the wall. He felt hurt by Sadao's words. Outside the door, Hana was waiting for Sadao. He saw that she was in some sort of trouble. Yumi had told her that the servants would not stay with them if the American man lived there any longer. She also said that Sadao and Hana had been in America for such a long time that they had forgotten their own country. Yumi said that she and the other servants thought that Hana and Sadao liked Americans. Sadao said that this was not true and all Americans were their enemies. He had been trained in such a way that he could not let a man die and would help to save him in whichever way he could. The attitude of the servants changed. They became more watchful. They were polite but unfriendly towards their masters. They could not understand Sadao's stance. The old gardener said that it was obvious what their master should have done. The old gardener had worked with flowers all his life and specialized in moss. He had been employed by Sadao's father. He had made one of the best moss gardens in Japan for Sadao's father. He would clean it so well that the sharp leaves of the pine tree could not spoil the soft velvety surface. According to him, the man was almost dead. He should have been left to bleed to death. The cook said disdainfully that their master was so proud of his skill at saving lives that he did not bother whose life he was saving. She cut the neck of a hen skillfully and held the bird as it shivered. She let the blood of the hen flow into the wisteria plant. The old gardener had instructed her that blood was the best fertilizer for the plants, and he did not allow her to waste a single drop of it. Yumi was worried about the fate of Sadao and Hana's children. She wondered that when they grew up, they would be labeled as the children of a traitor. As Sadao was helping an American, all the people of Japan would consider him to be an enemy of Japan, a traitor of his own country. The servants discussed the matter in Hana's presence as they wanted to know her views about the matter. She knew that they were right, but she could herself not understand her feelings. She had some feelings for the injured man, which she could not understand. She neither liked the prisoner nor was she attached to him. His presence was a great trouble and threat to Sadao and Hana. Every day, Sadao examined the prisoner's wound very carefully. The last stitches had been pulled out, and he would be entirely healed in a fortnight. Sadao went back to his office and carefully typed a letter to the chief of police reporting the matter. But he could not complete typing it, so he opened a secret drawer of his desk and put the unfinished report into it. On the seventh day after that, two things happened. The servants of the house left in the morning. They had tied their belongings in huge pieces of cloth. Hannah saw that the work had not been done. The house was dirty and the food had not been cooked. She was shocked and horrified, but did not show her feelings to the servants. She remained calm and maintained her grace. As the lady of the house, she paid them and thanked them for their services. As they had been working there for many years, they were crying, but Hannah did not cry. The cook and the gardener were very old employees. They had been employed by Sadao's father and had served Sadao since his childhood. Yumi was crying because she would miss the children. She was so sad that she ran up to Hannah after she had left. Yumi said to Hannah that if the baby missed her at night, she could call her. She further added that she was going to her own house, and Hannah knew where her house was. Hannah smiled and thanked her for the offer, but to herself she said that in case the baby cried, she would not call for Yumi. The next morning, Hannah prepared breakfast and Sadao helped her by looking after the children. Neither of them talked regarding the servants, but after Hannah served the morning food to the prisoner of war, she came back to Sadao, probably to talk about something. Hannah was very worried and she questioned Sadao why they were not very clear about what they ought to do. She added that even their servants were very clear. She wondered why they were behaving differently from other Japanese people. As the Americans were their enemies, they should not have treated that prisoner of war and they should have let him die just like any other Japanese would have done. The author has beautifully portrayed the conflict in the doctor's mind as an individual and as a citizen with a sense of national loyalty. It is his emotion of not frivolously wasting a human life that makes him take this decision. This is a story of true compassion that rises above petty differences, obscure biases, and incurable hatred. If you learned from this video lesson, do like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Do press the bell icon and keep watching other videos. Watch out for part 3 and look for links in the description box.